Tonight, we look at a heavy cost of continuity and change across Africa. From a fragile boat count in West Africa to surging taxes in the South, the continent is wrestling with the same stark choice: stability built on stifling control, or progress fueled by pain. The foundations are shaken. This is the African News Update on Top Accolade News. The headlines. Guinea-Bissau boat count begins. Cameroon opposition leader flees to Gambia. New tax measures in Malawi spark fears of higher prices and inflation. Zimbabwe opens cement imports. Our top story. Guinea-Bissau, a nation weary of cool, is holding its breath. Counting is underway in Guinea-Bissau after Sunday's pivotal presidential and legislative elections, with President Umaru Sissoco Mbamo seeking a second term against challenger Fernando Diaz da Costa in a tense race shaped by opposition exclusion, cool fears and public frustration in one of the world's poorest nations. While Mbamo touts infrastructure gains and Diaz promises stability and freedoms, the both unfolds under a legitimacy cloud and a fractured political landscape. From a tense vote count to the fallout of a disputed victory, we turn now to Cameroon. Cameroonian opposition figure Issa Chiroma Bakary has taken refuge in the Gambia after rejecting President Paul Biya's disputed re-election and facing threat of persecution amid deadly post-poll unrest, with Banjul granting him temporary humanitarian protection while insisting its territory won't be used for subversive activity. As Biya secures an eighth term at the age of 92, and tensions rise over alleged fraud, the episode underscores a region-wide truth. When leaders outstay their people, stability becomes the first exile. The political turbulence feeds directly into the economic pain gripping many nations, now the wallets of Malawians. Malawi's government has introduced higher taxes in the 2025/26 media budget review, including a rise in VAT from 16.5% to 17.5%, changes to the pay system, with top earners now paying up to 40%, and new business levies such as the minimum alternate tax, aiming to reduce the budget deficit. Economists, business leaders, and consumer groups warned the measures would drive up prices, worsen inflation, curb investment, and squeeze households already struggling with high living costs. Raising taxes without reform is like tightening a belt on an already hungry nation. Now to a crisis of infrastructure and supply, where the cost of building is quite literally doubling. Zimbabwe has lifted restriction on cement imports with immediate effect after nationwide shortages pushed the price of a 50 kg bag from $12 to about $20, with Minister Paul Mavima telling Parliament that booming construction demand, production setback and border delays have crippled supply from both local manufacturers and regional exporters. As government moves to stabilize the market following Dangote's recent visit, the crisis lays bare a hard truth. When the foundation of supply crumbles, the cost of building a nation doubles. You're watching the African News Update on Top Accolade News. Do stay with us. Still to come. Thanks for staying with us. From short-term supply fixes to long-term national trade ambition, Tanzania will finally launch construction of the long-stalled Bagamoyo port next month, a decade after government objection froze its 2013 deal with Chinese and Omani developers, with officials confirming work will start on 14 of 28 planned berths, and a deep water facility set to handle ships carrying up to 25,000 containers. The mega project marks a major push to reposition the country as an East African trade hub. On the global stage, a diplomatic summit. The G20 summit in Johannesburg concluded on Sunday amid the notable absence of the United States, as President Donald Trump's administration boycotted the two-day talks over claims of Afrikaner persecution in South Africa, leaving South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to close the first ever African-hosted summit alone. Despite the boycott, the summit issued a landmark 122-point declaration emphasizing climate action, debt relief, and wealth inequality, winning backing from China, Russia, Europe, and other nations while highlighting G20 struggles to resolve pressing geopolitical crisis. Back home, culture and creativity remains under the spotlight as veterans speak out. Popular Nigerian DJ and producer DJ Neptune has voiced concern over the treatment of veteran artists in the local music scene, claiming that creatives are often sidelined once they reach certain milestones, unlike in Western industries where seasoned artists remain relevant alongside newcomers. He emphasized the need for structural reform while noting that staying active requires reinvention to adapt to a constantly evolving industry. Longevity in music is earned not just by talent, but by the ability to evolve with the times. Finally, to the future of African football. The Confederation of African Football has delayed selecting host nations for the African Cup of Nations tournament from 2029 to 2035, despite receiving 5 bids from Angola, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Senegal, and a joint Mali-Guinea proposal. The executive committee cited the need for further evaluation of infrastructure, financial commitment, and organizational capacity, with final timelines expected in the coming weeks. Choosing a host is not just about football, but building the stage for Africa's next decade of opportunity. From the price of a contested election to the soaring cost of cement, our headlines tonight show that the drive for power, progress, and stability is never cheap. The decisions made today in a ballot box, a budget review, or a boardroom will determine the cost of living tomorrow. I am Ojorome Okocha, and this is the African News Update on Top Accolade News, keeping you connected to the pulse of the continent.